What if the best years of your relationship aren't behind you? They're actually ahead? After 30, 40, even 50 years together, most couples don't drift apart because love died. They drift apart because nobody told them what love actually needs to survive. Stay with me because the next few minutes might be the most important conversation your relationship has ever had. Let's start with something most people never talk about, which is the fact that long-term love changes shape. When you first fell in love with your partner, the relationship was driven largely by novelty. Everything about them was new: the way they laughed, the stories they told, the way they made you feel when they walked into a room. That newness produced a kind of natural electricity that felt effortless, because in a very real sense, it was. Your brain was doing a lot of the heavy lifting, flooding your system with dopamine and oxytocin and all those wonderful chemicals that made love feel like magic. But here's the thing about novelty. It is, by definition, temporary. The more time you spend with someone, the more familiar they become. And familiarity, while deeply comforting, can quietly erode the sense of excitement and intentionality that the early stages of love produce automatically. This is not a failure of love. It is simply the natural arc of a long relationship. The couples who thrive are the ones who understand this shift and respond to it deliberately, rather than assuming that love should always feel the way it did at the beginning. So what does that look like in practice? It starts with curiosity. One of the most powerful things you can do for your relationship is to remain genuinely curious about your partner. Not curious in the way you were when you first met, when everything about them was unknown, but curious in a deeper, more mature sense, curious about who they are becoming, what they are thinking about, what still keeps them up at night, what they are quietly hoping for. People change throughout their lives. The person you married at 30 or 40 is not exactly the same person sitting across from you now, and that is not a problem. That is an invitation. The question is whether you are willing to keep getting to know them. A good way to practice this is through what relationship researchers call open-ended conversation. And no, that does not mean asking your partner how their day was and leaving it at that. It means asking questions that require real reflection. What has been on your mind lately? Is there something you have always wanted to try that we have never done? What is one thing you feel really proud of from our life together? What do you wish we did more of? These questions can feel a little vulnerable at first, especially in relationships where deep conversation has become less frequent over time. But vulnerability, it turns out, is one of the most reliable pathways back to genuine closeness. Speaking of closeness, let's talk about physical connection because it is one of the most important and most under-discussed aspects of senior relationships. There is a damaging cultural myth that physical intimacy becomes less important or less possible as we age, and it causes a tremendous amount of unnecessary distance between couples. The truth is that the need for physical connection does not disappear with age. What changes is the form it takes and what it requires. Physical intimacy in long-term relationships is not only about sex, though that remains meaningful for many couples well into their 70s, 80s, and beyond. It is also about touch, the hand on the shoulder, the hug that lingers a little longer than usual, the foot resting against your partner's leg while you watch television. Research consistently shows that non-sexual physical affection is a powerful predictor of relationship satisfaction. And yet, many long-term couples gradually reduce this kind of touch without even realizing it. Life gets busier, bodies get more self-conscious, old routines calcify, and suddenly two people who once couldn't keep their hands off each other are living like polite roommates. If this sounds familiar, the path back is simpler than you might think. Start small and start intentional. Make a conscious effort to reach for your partner's hand when you are walking together. Sit closer on the couch. Give a hug when one of you comes home. Kiss hello and goodbye like you mean it. These gestures seem minor, but they send a signal to both of you. A reminder that you are not just companions sharing a household, but partners who are still choosing each other every single day. For couples navigating health challenges that affect physical intimacy, whether that is chronic pain, reduced mobility, hormonal changes, or any number of other realities that come with age, the conversation about what feels good and what is possible becomes even more important. This is where communication, the cornerstone of every healthy relationship, becomes absolutely essential. Many couples go years without directly discussing their intimate needs, out of embarrassment or assumption or fear of saying the wrong thing. But the couples who navigate these challenges most successfully are the ones who learn to talk about it openly, with kindness and without judgment. If this feels difficult, it is worth knowing that therapists who specialize in senior relationships and sexuality can be extraordinarily helpful, and there is no shame whatsoever in seeking that support. Now let's talk about communication more broadly, because this is where most relationship problems either begin or end. After decades together, many couples fall into the trap of thinking they already know everything their partner is going to say. They finish sentences, they assume motivations, they interpret silences based on old patterns rather than present reality. This is one of the most quietly destructive habits in long-term relationships because it stops you from actually hearing each other. Real communication requires something that is harder than it sounds. It requires listening to understand rather than listening to respond. When your partner brings something to you, whether it is a frustration, a need, a fear, or a dream, the first job is not to fix it or defend yourself or offer a solution. The first job is to make them feel heard. This means asking follow-up questions. It means reflecting back what you are hearing. So what I'm understanding is that you felt overlooked when that happened. Is that right? It means staying curious rather than defensive, even when the conversation touches something tender. One of the most valuable tools for any long-term couple is a regular ritual of checking in with each other. Not a formal meeting, not a structured exercise, just a habit of asking genuinely and with full attention, "How are you doing?" Not "How was your day?" but "How are you as a person right now?" Many couples discover that their partners have been carrying things for weeks or months that never came up because the rhythm of daily life never created the right opening. Creating that opening on purpose, making it a regular, expected, welcome thing, changes the texture of a relationship significantly. Let's also address something that comes up frequently in long-term senior relationships, and that is the question of independence versus togetherness. Many couples, particularly after retirement, suddenly find themselves spending far more time together than they ever have before. This can be wonderful, and it can also be deeply challenging. Human beings, regardless of how much they love their partners, need a sense of individual identity. They need friendships outside the marriage, interests that are theirs alone, spaces where they are not primarily defined by their role as a spouse. The healthiest long-term couples tend to have found a balance between shared life and individual life. They have things they love to do together and things they love to do separately, and they encourage each other in both. If your partner wants to join a book club or take a painting class or spend a Saturday morning with their friends, the response that serves the relationship most is not mild resentment or subtle discouragement. It is genuine enthusiasm. Because a partner who feels free to be themselves inside a relationship brings more of themselves back to it. Independence, when it is mutual and encouraged, actually deepens intimacy rather than threatening it. On the flip side of this is the reality that many senior couples are navigating a period of life where one or both partners are dealing with significant caregiving demands, either caring for each other through health challenges or caring for aging parents, or both. Caregiving, as beautiful and selfless as it is, can place enormous strain on a relationship when it is not balanced carefully. The person being cared for can feel guilty or diminished. The caregiver can feel exhausted and invisible. Both can feel that the relationship has shifted so far toward a functional dynamic that the romantic and emotional connection has been crowded out. If this is your situation, the most important thing to understand is that you have not lost the relationship. It has just gotten buried under very difficult circumstances, and it needs to be intentionally uncovered. That might mean scheduling time that has nothing to do with health management or logistics. Time that is just for you as a couple. A slow walk outside, watching a movie you both love, looking at old photographs and remembering. These are not trivial activities. They are acts of relationship maintenance, and they matter enormously. It is also worth talking about conflict, because every couple has it, and the way conflict is handled in long-term relationships tends to either strengthen or gradually erode the foundation of the partnership. Research by Dr. John Gottman, who has spent decades studying what makes relationships succeed or fail, consistently shows that it is not the presence of conflict that damages relationships. It is the way conflict is managed. Couples who criticize each other's character rather than addressing specific behaviors, who become contemptuous or dismissive, who shut down and refuse to engage, these are the patterns that do lasting damage. The antidote is not to avoid disagreement, but to fight better. This means using language that talks about your own feelings rather than attacking your partner. I feel hurt when plans change at the last minute, rather than, you never consider how I feel. It means taking breaks when conversations get too heated, but committing to returning to them when both people have calmed down. It means assuming good intentions in your partner, even when you are frustrated with their behavior, and perhaps most importantly, it means making repair attempts, the small gestures that signal, even in the middle of a disagreement, that the relationship matters more than being right. A light touch on the arm, a small joke that breaks the tension, a genuine, "I'm sorry I said that." These moments of repair, Gottman's research shows, are one of the single greatest predictors of long-term relationship health. Let's talk for a moment about gratitude, because it is one of the most underutilized relationship tools available to any couple. It is easy, after years together, to stop noticing the things your partner does for you. The meal they made, the errand they ran, the way they have quietly managed 10,000 details of your shared life over decades. These things become invisible because they are consistent, and the human brain is wired to stop paying attention to things that are consistent. But your partner is not invisible. They are a person who has chosen to spend their life building something with you, and that deserves to be noticed and said out loud. A simple, genuine expression of gratitude, not a polite thank you, but a real acknowledgement of what your partner brings to your life, can do more for a relationship than almost anything else. It says, "I see you. I appreciate you. I do not take you for granted." Try making it a practice. At the end of a day, tell your partner one specific thing you appreciated about them. It does not have to be profound. "I noticed how patient you were on the phone today, and I really admired that," is enough. "Thank you for always making the coffee the way I like it. I know it's small, but it makes my morning better," is enough. These expressions compound over time. They build a culture of appreciation inside the relationship that makes both people feel valued and seen. Shared experiences are another pillar of lasting connection, and they become especially important in the senior years when life can start to feel like it is contracting rather than expanding. One of the most consistent findings in relationship research is that couples who regularly have new experiences together, not necessarily dramatic ones, but genuinely new ones, report higher levels of relationship satisfaction. This is because novelty, that thing that drove early love, can be reintroduced deliberately through shared adventure. And adventure at this stage of life can mean many things. It can mean traveling somewhere neither of you has been. It can mean taking a class together, learning something unfamiliar side by side. It can mean trying a new restaurant every month, or exploring a part of your own city you have never visited, or reading the same book and talking about it. The goal is simply to create experiences that are outside your usual routine. Experiences that give you something new to talk about, something new to laugh about, something new to navigate together. And then there is this, learning to truly celebrate each other, not just on birthdays and anniversaries, but in the everyday moments. Celebrating the things your partner has accomplished, the ways they have grown, the person they continue to become. Long-term love at its best is not just companionship. It is being someone's most devoted witness, the person who has seen everything they have been through and still looks at them with genuine admiration. When your partner achieves something, when they overcome something hard, when they show a quality that reminds you of why you fell in love, say so, clearly, out loud, without waiting for a special occasion. Finally, and perhaps most essentially, choose love actively every single day. This sounds simple, but it is a radical act in a world that treats love primarily as a feeling rather than a decision. The feeling of love ebbs and flows across decades. There will be seasons of closeness and seasons of distance. There will be periods when your partner feels like the most wonderful person in the world, and periods when they drive you absolutely crazy. That is not a sign that the love is wrong. It is a sign that you are human, both of you, doing your best inside a long and imperfect and beautiful thing.